Hello there. I think I'm live, and hopefully people will be able to comment as I'm doing this. If you are on, please give a comment. Let me know who you are, where you're from. Happy Friday evening to you if you are in the United States, and happy Saturday if you're in Australia, New Zealand, other parts of the world experiencing summer right now. Gonna chat just a little bit longer, small talk. Hopefully I'm gonna see that we have the comments working here. I haven't done a real planned Facebook Live before. I've only done one of these, and it was very spontaneous. I just came on and wasn't looking for comments. So I'd like to see if I can get feedback from anybody who's attending here. So if you are watching, please give me a comment. Let me see if I can see what's going on here. And in the meantime, I will say my name is Stormy May, and I'm here because I care a lot about compassionate communication. It's been my life's work. It's been something that I originally came to through my work with horses. I was just born as one of those horse crazy kids, one of the more acute cases as I've seen. But probably many of you were similar. You know, we played horses at recess and even ate a little grass now and then. Drew horses, painted horses, read all the horse books in my elementary school library. But I wasn't really satisfied until I had my own horse that I could interact with and really learn like what our horse is really about. So I did get my first horse at age 10, which I'm beyond belief lucky to be able to start working with horses at that young of an age, and really have been with them ever since. There's been I don't think any periods of my life when I've not had a horse since then, and I'm in my 40s now. So I do have many years spent with horses. A lot of you know me through The Path of the Horse, which was a documentary I made, believe it or not, 12 years ago. And then I edited it for a couple of years, so it was released 10 years ago now. And that was really my turning point of when I went from more traditional or natural horsemanship style trainer, gentle horse trainer, to, I don't even know what I call myself now. Certainly not a horse trainer anymore. I got fascinated by our relationships. And to me, the relationship was always so much more important than what I could actually do with the horses. But I didn't know that at first. At first, you get horses and you figure, oh, well, I'm going to learn to ride them and train them and help others do that. And that went fine for actually most of the horses I worked with, but there were a few that really told me that they didn't want to be doing what I wanted to be doing with them. So that, this was after 20 years as a professional trainer. I was stumped. Most horses I could get along with. I was very successful, but a couple of these horses were telling me that I was doing something wrong. And rather than, go to more trainers and try and figure out, what different training techniques are going to work, I gave that all up for a while. I did go around the world, and I was lucky enough to be able to interview and work with some of the world's top trainers at the time, and a lot of them are still top trainers. And I really got a chance to integrate what I learned and move on from there, really. After I spent some time with these top trainers, I realized that they have good techniques, and definitely there's still some things that I use from them, but there was something even deeper, and that's when I went to human teachers, and I was looking for teachers who had the kind of life that I wanted. These people were peaceful, they were compassionate, they knew how to resolve conflicts, they lived in communities that were peaceful and harmonious. And I went to these teachers and I asked them what they did, how they did it, what was the secret, how to do this. So I want to share what I found. And I see we have a couple of people on right now. If you're just joining, welcome to this Facebook Live. I will get vulnerable here and tell you that these things are very scary for me to do. I think I push myself to do them just because, you know, I have learned a lot and I love to share it. So I push myself through the fear. But if you think that I'm awkward or not saying things in a smooth way, you're probably right. I just want to get it out there and share what I know so that I can hopefully help others progress. Okay, excellent. I see a comment here. Hello, Kylie, thanks for joining. And it looks like Alice is here too. Great, okay, so this is live. I am talking to somebody, that's wonderful. And I'm gonna be, if you see me looking over here, that's me referring to my notes, because again, speaking is not my thing. I love working with people one-on-one, but these lecture type things, yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms. And especially when I'm just here by myself in a room, it's a lot different than interacting with other people. So I love to see any of your comments, and I'm going to get into what I really want to share with you today. So the biggest thing that gets in the way of compassionate communication. First of all, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think it is? What is the biggest thing that gets in the way of communicating compassionately with anybody, with animals, with humans? I asked this a little bit earlier, and Natalie said having an agenda. And yeah, that's huge. If you have this expectation that it's supposed to be a certain way and it's not that way, it really makes it hard to communicate with compassion, because a lot of times you'll be coming up with frustration or stress or worry or something other than compassion if it's not working out the way you had planned in your agenda. Anybody else, if you want to comment on what you think is the biggest thing getting in the way of compassionate communication, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I'm going to go on and tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about two different types of people. And you probably know both of these types of people. So the first type of person is a complainer or a blamer, or somebody who just finds fault with everything. You know, you can't just walk up and have a pleasant conversation with them. They're going to be complaining about their car, or their spouse, or their kid, or their job, or their mortgage, or whatever they're complaining about. And a lot of times these are people in our families. And so if you know some of these people, please let me know. I'd like to see if what I'm sharing here is resonating. One thing that is characteristic of these people is, especially if you know them over time, is that when things change, like say they're complaining about their car and then they get a new car, they're going to complain about the new car. And if you've known these people over time, this is kind of their hallmark, is that they get into this habit of complaining and blaming and worrying and stressing, and like everything's a problem. And they really truly believe that if something changes, then they'll be happy, then they'll be at peace. You know, they get the new car, then everything will be okay. Or, you know, their kid does better at school, then everything will be okay. But again, if you've really known these people, you can kind of predict that whatever changes, that's going to be a problem too. It's just a mindset that they've gotten into. Let me see. So Alice says that for her, the question of what gets in the way of compassionate communication, she says, it's a person not understanding the body language of raptors and the animals that she works with. And as I say, it's often people feeling that it's the bird's fault and not how they're treating the bird. Yeah, so true. Thank you, Alice. That's very helpful. Kylie says, yes, it's never their fault. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, so back to the metaphor, the person who's always complaining and blaming and worrying and stressing, you just kind of know that even though they truly believe that if they just had this other thing, it would be better. But as we know, looking from the outside, it's just rarely the case, if ever. So that's one person. And if we take into consideration the opposite of that would be a person who's grateful and who's appreciating and who's joyful and happy and okay with whatever is. And those kind of people, you just know that if they're okay with things as they are right now, today, they're going to be okay with things as they are tomorrow. It's a whole different way of perceiving the world, perceiving our reality. And even if those two people were in the exact same circumstances, one would still be complaining and blaming and worrying and stressing about it, and the other would be seeing the gratitude, seeing the lessons, seeing the beauty in that situation. So that kind of illustrates what I've found is the biggest obstacle to compassionate communication, and that is our habitual mindset. It's the habitual ways that we've taken on to perceive what's going on. And surprise, surprise, we have both of those characters in ourselves. Everybody has part of themselves that is the complainer, the blamer, the worrier, the stressor, and the part that is appreciating and grateful and joyful. The question is, how much are you in one or the other? And sometimes it's really hard to tell from the inside, from yourself. Rarely would somebody say, oh yeah, I complain and blame all the time. We tend to not think that about ourselves, even though if you ask 5 of your friends, hey, do I complain more than others? They may say yes. That would be an interesting experiment to try. But you can feel it if you really want your life to feel better, if you want your life to be better, if you want your animals to want to communicate compassionately with you. You have to really be honest with yourself and take stock of how often today, for most of us in the US, it's the end of the day here. How often today did you feel really happy and satisfied and grateful and appreciative for what was happening? Or how often or how much time did you spend in complaining or blaming or thinking you have problems that need to be solved or stressed or worried or all that? And if you did, it's, don't feel bad about it. I mean, don't add worse to what you already have. Just recognize that, oh, that's you too. You got caught in this mindset of thinking that things need to be different, things need to change. And really, how could we not? If we look at our culture, and pretty much, everybody who's part of this group is, well enough that we can be here online watching videos about how to be better humans. So for most of us, we have the basics. We're not lacking shelter, we're not lacking food. We have everything to be okay in this world. But the one thing that we got passed on from usually our parents, our siblings, our teachers, our culture, is this habit of blaming and complaining, like thinking that there's problems, that need to be solved. This way of perceiving the world is toxic. It's debilitating. It might feel like, oh, there are problems and I do need to solve them. But if we're stuck in that mindset, like, when is this going to be done? Just like that person who's always complaining, when is this problem going to be solved? And if you haven't found a way to come into peace and harmony over and over throughout the day, you're not going to be there. It's the changing circumstances. If you buy a new horse or move to a new place or have a new spouse or whatever it's going to be, that's not really going to do it for you unless you get down to the root cause. And that root cause, I'm trying to paint the picture, is the way we're perceiving these situations. It's a huge problem. And again, it's not our fault. This is what we copied. This is what our parents probably did. This is what our teachers did. This is what our bosses do. This is what our kids do. This is the way we do life. And this is also why I think that we have such problems that we need to solve, is because we haven't grown up in a culture that is peaceful and accepting of what is and accepting of the differences of others. So the question is how to do this. And this is really where my search led me after the path of the horse. I went, not only did I go around the world filming The Path of the Horse. But after that, I went around to human teachers. And these were teachers not necessarily who worked with animals, but really had found peace for themselves and peace in the communities that they were part of. And after checking it out, after checking out some of these places and really making sure that they were who they said they were, I would ask to be a student. I would ask, what's the secret? How do you do this? How did you find out how to live a life of peace and harmony? And can you show me how to do that? Oh, good. We have some more people. Michelle and Kathy. Wonderful. Good to see you here. Thank you for joining. And the few people who haven't said hello, feel free to say hi in the comments. I appreciate having somebody here to talk to. Okay, so what I'm saying, that I kind of painted a picture and about what I see as the biggest thing getting in the way of compassionate communication, and that is the way we perceive what's going on. And that comes down to brain science. Like if you've ever been around little kids, you notice how quickly they copy and how they mimic. I mean, that's how they build their whole pattern of how to operate in life, is by mimicking others. So if we're not mimicking these peaceful, happy, joyful people, then that's not who we're going to be. It would kind of be weird if that was as it was. So back to these people that I was learning from. What I found with across the board, they all had some theory that they taught, but the most important things that I got from these human teachers were specific exercises. And these exercises came from many different traditions, and some are just more recently developed based on brain science research. But they're really ways of rewiring our brains, and really literally rewiring our brains, changing our neural pathways. So if you are into brain science at all, you'll know that the more we think and act in habitual ways, the stronger those neural connections become in our minds, and then that becomes like our default pattern. So if we always if we get into this habit of rushing and stressing as we're getting to work, it's just going to be this ingrained pattern of you rush and stress as you're getting to work. So to be able to step in that moment and change that pattern, it's huge. I mean, it's everything. It turns you from that person who's complaining and stressed and worried and blaming into the person who is seeing the peace and the harmony that is here right now. And that's critical. That's critical for making this shift into being able to compassionately communicate, is to be able to step into any moment into appreciating what is. Because from that appreciation is where we can compassionately communicate with whoever's around us, whether it's a horse or a raptor or a dog or a cat or a spouse or a kid or whoever it is, or ourselves, really. If we don't have the skills, I don't know if that's the right word, but if we don't have the ways to retrain our brains into from one to the other, from the complainer into the appreciator, we're not going to find it. We're stuck in this belief that, oh, that next thing is going to do it for me. I'm just waiting to win the lottery and then everything will be okay. They've done studies. People who win the lottery, yes, they're a little bit happier for a short amount of time, and then their happiness level goes right back to that set point. So keep that in mind. Now, conversely, there are these specific exercises that people from all traditions, whatever place they're starting from, the people that I've found that really have been able to transform their lives and the lives of others into ones of compassionate communication are ones that have used specific exercises to retrain their minds in a moment to go from one to the other. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, maybe I can give you a touchstone of, for example, for some people, meditation works. Being able to meditate and have that quiet space is a way to step out of that being stressed. For some people, yoga For some people, mindfulness or singing or dancing. There's different ways that we historically have used to help get us into this state. And the place where I see most of those fall short is that it's great when you're doing it, but then what about after? Like if you're meditating for half an hour, what about the other 23 and a half hours of the day? Or if you're doing yoga for an hour, what about the other 23 hours a day? Or some people, just being with horses brings them that peace and harmony and joy. But what about the rest of the day? What about the rest of your life? Is that something that is, reliably you can cultivate during your day, that appreciation, that gratitude, that acceptance? Or do you find yourself going back into thinking that there's a problem, that there's something that's not quite right here? I am incredibly blessed that as a result of all this searching, I'm able to help others learn how to rewire their minds and switch from one to the other. And it's not hard, but it does take a commitment. It does take somebody who's very bold and has a certain level of trust, or at least hope that it could work, that this could be the thing. And unfortunately, a lot of people really get stuck in their problems, and to the point where, I can say, oh, I know this great way out. And they're like, oh, well, what's the catch? Or, this can't really work. Maybe it works for other people, but not for me. And oh my gosh, that is so sad when I talk to people like that. I mean, I try and give them my best, but sometimes there's just too much to come up against, and a person does have to have a certain amount of willingness or maybe desperation, and recognizing that these other ways haven't worked or haven't worked as well as they wanted, and they have to put themselves in a place where they want to change. And this is exactly where I was at when I made the path of the horse. It was, I was dying as a regular horse trainer. It wasn't feeling fun to me anymore. The horses weren't really enjoying themselves. It didn't feel right. And through that desperation, it's like, forget it. This isn't worth it. I'm giving this up because I think there's something else that's better to find. And so that is now what I help people do. And I swear it's the most amazing job in the world. To even say that this is a job is incredible. But what I've done is taken the best of these exercises that I've learned from all sorts of different teachers, and some that I've come up with myself, that really do help a person change their mind, change their state of being, raise their vibration, if you like those terms, into the higher levels, to where we can see from a different perspective, to where we actually just step out of that mindset of there's a problem, or this is wrong, or somebody else did something wrong, into, wow, this is a beautiful moment. I have this breath, here's the breeze, here's the sunshine, this is all okay. And that's peace. Peace doesn't exist anywhere else. It's only right here, right now. And if you don't have a good way of finding that, I urge you, find somebody who does, because working with a person like that just makes all the difference. It's not hard, it's not difficult, but you do have to make that commitment to say, I'm tired of this life. I can't go on like this. This is not okay. A lot of the people I talk with are in their late 50s and 60s, and they've tried it all. If they had been able to find it on their own, they would have, and we wouldn't be talking. But I'm so lucky that part of my job is I get to talk to people almost every day from around the world, who are looking for better relationships, who are looking for that compassionate communication. The people I find that are successful with it are ones that are ready to take that plunge, and they're not going to let anything stand in their way. They just have this feeling like, yep, this is it, let's do it. And then we jump in and we work together, and within a short amount of time, even by the first week, it's just amazing. And I have some of the people that or some actually have gone through my course, and some are going through it right now. And if anybody that knows more of what I'm talking about, I'd love for you to make some comments about how you understand what I'm talking about. This willingness and this commitment to find somebody who's walked this path and find somebody who can help us and mentor us and coach us through these changes, because really we can't get there on our own. I wish we could. I mean, I would have been there a long time ago if we could do it on our own, but we can't. We can't just learn this from books. We can't just learn this from videos. We can't learn it from lectures. We need to have somebody in our life that knows us, that can ask us questions, that can hold us accountable, because that makes the difference between it being impossible and it being possible. So I want to wrap this up. Thank you all for being here. This is wonderful. And I'll take a look at my notes, see if there's anything that I missed here. Yeah, thank you guys for being here and for being interested. I hope you can feel what I'm talking about, of the obstacles that are in our way are really our own concepts about how life is supposed to be versus how it actually is. If you would like help on this, obviously this is what I do, this is what I teach. I have myself and 2 other amazing human beings who are helping me take calls. I offer a free call to anybody who would like just a strategy session. We can talk about where you're at, where you'd like to go, and certainly if there's anything that I can think of to help get you from where you are to where you're going to go, I'm going to share that with you. Sometimes that's even a big step for people. It's funny, like how many people can hear this offer of a free call, and then immediately people are like, oh, what's the catch? Or, I don't want to, this too good to be true. But really, it's just that. It's a free call. Anywhere in the world, I can call you. Sometimes we do Zoom calls, which is the conference chat. But yeah, no, it's a free call, and I would love to talk to you. We get on the phone for about an hour, and we can really go deep and set up a plan for how to get you out of where you feel stuck. So to book that call, I'll put a link in the comments, but for you listening live now, it's ourhorses.org, ourhorses.org/apply, APPLY, and that'll get you to our booking call page. And again, it's totally free. There's no catch, there's no commitment, there's no guilt trip. We're just gonna listen to your story, listen to where you're stuck, and if there's ways that we can help you get out of it, or if there's other books or resources or things that we think might be a more appropriate first step, we're definitely going to recommend that. And it's also a great way to build community. So if we haven't already talked, I would definitely urge you to book a call and just see what we're up to. These people that I'm doing calls with are just so brilliant in their own ways. So whether you talk to me or Liz or Jenna, you're in for a huge treat of really listening to somebody who does know how to do compassionate communication, and that just shines through. So I hope you take me up on this offer. I'd love to talk with you more personally. I tend not to reply too much in depth to topics here on this in this group because there's so many different factors, and it's just a night and day difference between typing words on a keyboard and actually hearing somebody's voice and hearing their stories in their own words, and that really allows the transformation to happen on a bigger level. So don't be shy, don't be worried, don't feel like you obligated to anything. Book a call, and I'd love to talk. There should be spots available for the next few days, so go ahead, ourhorses.org/apply, and I'd love to talk to you about your particular situation. Take care.